It's that time again. The winter anime season is basically come to a close, and while I may not be the biggest seasonal watcher out there, I usually check out a few shows each season. And at least for this season, the few I checked out were all pretty good in my opinion. I checked out the newest season of Machi, and while I may not be the biggest Machi fan out there, I think we can all agree season 4 was easily the best season. Part 1 and Part 2. Part 2 is definitely better, but the season as a whole was amazing. And while it may be very brief, the best girl did make a comeback, so that made the season that much better. I also checked out the Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten, which honestly was probably, if not the most wholesome rom-com I've ever watched. The only thing I wish is that it got a better budget because the story was so good, but the animation was so mediocre that it was just like, because there were so many like jank shots in it. The story was amazing though, so I mean, if you don't mind watching a show with mediocre animation, I would highly check it out. It just hurts sometimes to see, but the story was phenomenal. And I also checked out Kuba Won't Let Me Be Invisible, which I had to because I own like the first 6 volumes of the manga, so there's no way I couldn't. And I thought it was pretty good too until it got delayed by some virus I've never heard of before, which is interesting, but I don't know. It was pretty good too, but maybe I'm being a biased manga fan on this one because I think I might have enjoyed the manga a little bit more, but it was still good nonetheless, and I'll definitely be checking it out when the rest of it airs in a few months. But anyways, none of those are the topic of this video. I just wanted to briefly mention them. Today I'm going to be focusing on probably one of the most interesting, maybe even controversial shows this season, something called Onichan wa Oshimai, mainly known by its shortened form, which is just Onimai. And yeah, there's quite a bit of interesting stuff to talk about the show. I probably won't make this anything crazy long because I'm personally not someone who really enjoys doing like long stretch video essays, but I just want to chat about it because I think this is one of the most interesting shows of the season and easily the show I could talk about the most out of the 4 shows I mentioned that I watched this season. So let's just jump into it. So I don't really have a whole thing written up for this. I'm just gonna kind of speak off my mind. Um, but Onimai was definitely a very interesting show. I'm just gonna go right to the start because I think most people, first glance of Onimai, just see it as a really like bad fan servicey show with just a super sus premise, and I definitely kind of agree with that at first. And I even know some people too who I kind of like almost like brought it up to, and they were all like, "What the hell is this?" Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably the main idea most people get. And needless to say, it does have a handful of questionable moments, unfortunately. But the thing is, if you actually watched a show, and for those of you watching who've actually watched the show, I think we can agree it is a lot more than just a stupid fan servicey plot. While again, unfortunately, some episodes lean a lot more towards fan service than I would like. There are also many episodes too that are just like extremely wholesome, and I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more than that. We all love some nice wholesome content. And of course, I think it's also worth mentioning the studio and everything behind it because I think most of us know by now Studio Bind made this, and they did an incredible job. I mean, the visuals on it are amazing, the animation on it's amazing. I mean, it's pretty interesting that a show like this has better animation than probably like 99% of anime out there. Maybe not that much, but like most anime out there. And again, unfortunately, sometimes that budget did go to certain scenes, but there were also many times that budget went to the other scenes too. Like, I think if you've watched the series, you can agree some of the shots in that final episode, no, not the first half of the episode, like, but like the later half of the episode, some of those shots were beautiful. Like, so I mean, it's obvious they put like a lot of effort into this, which is honestly awesome, considering it's definitely not the type of show you'd expect to have a ton of budget behind it. Now, going on to the premise, obviously the premise also turns a lot of people off from the show because it's about a guy who supposedly is into like a lot of erotic stuff and whatever, and his sister just randomly turns him into a girl one day. I don't remember exactly why now. Unfortunately, I'm a fake Onimai fan, but it, it definitely sets up, for there to be a lot of weird moments. But on top of that, like, it's more than just those weird moments. Like, especially in the first episode, maybe 2, 3 episodes, From what I can remember, yes, of course, unfortunately, they threw in some weird moments like that, but there were also many times where they took that plot and premise and turned it into something really funny. Like, I know, again, within the first few episodes, I know there were multiple times where, because he's unfamiliar with this body, like, like he would do just like some funny stuff or like whatever. Like, there was one time where I know in, I think, the first episode, he got caught playing a game that usually girls would be playing. Um, I don't think they actually showed it happening, thank God, but when he went to the bathroom for the first time, yeah, that was an interesting part. Another, I think, hilarious part too was in one episode he had a boys and a girls bathroom available, and yeah, that I wouldn't say that was weird. It just it made it very funny and entertaining because he's like, what do I do now? So if you haven't gotten an idea yet, yeah, this show has honestly a lot of really funny moments, a lot of really wholesome moments, and I definitely think if you fully watch the series, if you can overcome the weird moments, it honestly hides such a good series behind it. And when you really think about it, the story behind it, or like the kind of like idea theme behind it, is honestly really nice. Um, because it's honestly more than just a weird gender bender show. It's basically, like kind of like discovering life all over again and like experiencing the joys of life all over again. It's just unfortunately it's in a, or unfortunately or fortunately depending on the person, it's in a new body, and throughout the series he really comes to appreciate it. It's not just about like, oh, goofy fan service with a bunch of girls and stuff. Like, it really is about him kind of growing as a person, even though it took his sister changing him into a girl to actually get him to grow out of his old habits and, experience the world. And I think ultimately that's a big theme of what the show is really about. Like I said, that coupled with like its really wholesome moments, really funny moments and stuff, I feel like just makes it like honestly just an amazing show overall. And I just hate that so many people overlook it just because of its stupid fan service moments and its really questionable premise. But again, just like with Mushoku Tensei, Studio Bind did not disappoint at all, and honestly, it's hard to really pick my favorite show for a season, and I don't know if I can, but this show is definitely such a joy to watch this season. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I really recommend checking it out. Again, if you can get past the fact that unfortunately you're going to be watching some fan service scenes from time to time, some very exaggerated, it honestly has such a good, wholesome story behind it, and I definitely recommend checking it out again if you don't get turned off easily by fan service. And obviously, I could go a lot more in depth, even about like the characters and stuff, which I personally liked all the characters and stuff too. Um, but again, I don't want to turn this into like a 20-minute long video essay, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. Also, because if you've noticed, I've really been slacking on actually making videos lately, so I don't want to drag this out longer than I do because I'm really bad at losing motivation. I'm just gonna be completely honest, so I think this is gonna wrap me up for today. So I guess I'll just say the mandatory YouTuber stuff now. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you enjoyed it, or if you didn't, you just don't do that stuff and just move on with your life. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I'll catch you whenever I actually decide to upload again. Peace.